Is it a Jeep? Is it a Land Rover? Or maybe it's the Toyota FJ Cruiser? No. It's the Ssangyong Torres, and it really looks as if Jeep, Land Rover and Toyota were up to something more in the evening after doing the Moab Trail together. What is the Korean Land Jeep Cruiser like? Let's find out. So what's up with the references to other brands? Take a look for yourself. For example, the radiator grille. Well, actually, it's not the radiator grille because the grille is lower. But between the headlights, there is an imitation of the radiator grille with 6 slots. If there were 7 of them, Jeep's lawyers would be probably sending out lawsuits because that would be the Jeep trademark. This red element is a reference to the red towing hooks on Jeeps. On the Taurus, it's simply a plastic cover under which you screw in an ordinary tow hook. The loops on the bonnet are also very Jeep-like. In Wranglers, they are used to secure the folded down windshield. Here, nothing falls down, so they seem to have no use, but I heard some accessories like light bars can be attached to it. From the side is a bit of Land Rover Defender, a bit of Toyota FJ Cruiser. The overall silhouette on the side is somewhere between the two models, but the flattened wheel arches are more Defender. The blades on the C-pillars are also reminiscent of both models, but in the Defender you can order like this optional side gearbox here, and there's an optional box like that for the Taurus as well. And the wing mirrors. Now the housings are massive like on the FJ Cruiser or even the Hummer H3. I'm sure I've seen this somewhere else. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen them somewhere as well. Moving on to the rear, where there's also a lot going on. Now, the tailgate is asymmetrical like in the Land Rover Discovery, and a spare wheel hanging from the tailgate is a hallmark of a true off-roader. Over time, some brands have begun to use wheel covers, in some cases even hardshell covers, but there is nothing under this bulge here. There's a handle that suggests the tailgate opens to the side, like on a Defender or an FJ Cruiser or maybe a Wrangler. Instead, it flips up. According to the spec sheet, the boot has 703 liters capacity, which should make it the biggest in the segment. Now, more about the competition in a moment. The problem is that this figure takes into account the huge space under the boot floor, which here is limited by a styrofoam insert. The four-wheel drive version also gets a mini spare, and in Poland the importer also offers an LPG conversion, so I imagine the LPG tank will also end up there. Regardless of the styrofoam insert, you can't drop the floor, so you're left with about 500 liters in the upper part of the boot, and this result is similar to other crossovers of these dimensions. On the plus side, the cargo cover fits under the floor, and there are 2 niches on the sides with some elastic straps to secure, for example, a window washer fluid bottle. The tailgate is electrically operated, but it works almost as slowly as in the Toyota RAV4. Really? Really? So I have to unlock the car, and then I can press the button and see you in the next take, because this is gonna take a while. And there is no gesture control. Now let's talk about the Taurus's competition. The Ssangyong Torres belongs to the C+ crossover segment. That's slightly larger compact crossovers, but not yet D segment. We're talking about cars like Hyundai Tucson, Jeep Compass, Kia Sportage, Nissan X-Trail, Subaru Forester, Toyota RAV4, but since the Torres is the largest in the group, the automaker does not rule out it may also compete with some D-segment SUVs like the Hyundai Santa Fe, Kia Sorento or Skoda Kodiaq. However, the Torres will not get a 7-seater version, and perhaps this is why the product presentation didn't mention the Volkswagen Tiguan Allspace, which I think the Torres competes directly with. Anyway, the Torres is a large car for its segment, and its looks stand out compared to the competition. And even premium car makers could take notes on how to fit doors so they sound like this when closing. Take a listen once more. BMW, Mercedes. This is how you do it. Doors cover the sills. The door pockets are average size. There are also map pockets in the backs of the front seats. There are air vents, as well as 2 USB-A ports and some cubbies around them. I'm not really sure what for, maybe in some markets they are filled by third zone climate control. Legroom and headroom are generous. Unfortunately, the backrests do not have an adjustable tilt angle, and the backrest splits 40-60 with an armrest, but no ski hatch. Isofix anchor points are only in the back, but not on the front passenger seat. Up front, the first thing that catches the eye is the steering wheel with flattened top and bottom. The bottom, I suppose, is to make getting in and out easier, and the flattened top is to make the whole driver's screen visible through the steering wheel. On the steering wheel, there are buttons for cruise control and multimedia. On the display in front of the driver, there are some basic onboard computer information and settings. Way too many settings for driver aids and for some car settings as well. And I'm sure some of these could be moved to one of the 2 displays on the center console. Speaking of which, I've seen pictures online of the Taurus's interior with a larger and clearly better infotainment system than the one we get here. Perhaps in some markets you just get a better one, because in Poland we got the absolutely worst infotainment system on the market. For example, the settings are not under setup, but under mode. You go into the sound source menu, and from there, when you press the cogged wheel, you get some of the settings, but not all of them, because I still haven't found the ambient light settings. This car should have navigation, but it doesn't. The card was probably removed during a software update, which happened just before I picked up the car for testing. So probably the card is with the Press Fleet Manager. Now, I can't imagine how bad the system must have been before the update. But there's still a chance they may improve it at some point. The infotainment system is so archaic that Android Auto is displayed like an older Mazda or Mitsubishi model, so the architecture is probably like 10 years old. And that's probably why the climate control settings are on a separate display like in the Mazda MX-30. It's a cheaper solution than adding physical buttons depending on the equipment version. For example, seats in this test car are not only heated but also ventilated. Speaking of seats, they are comfortable, both electrically operated, and both have no memory settings. Just like in Hyundais and Kias 5-10 years ago, it gives an impression of a luxury car, but when you think about it, it makes no sense. Under the AC display are 2 USB-A ports and a wireless charger. Next is a good-sized cubby with cup holders and space for some bits and bobs. There's also a medium-sized storage compartment under the armrest with a 12-volt outlet inside. The glove box is also average size. The door pockets are decent size though. I noticed the dashboard is tilted at such an angle that I can't leave, for example, my sunglasses on it, because they will slide off. I don't drive like this, but sometimes when I leave the car for a minute, like to close the gate or something, I throw my glasses in front of me. Well, here they just fall to the floor. In the near future, there will be an electric Taurus EVX, but for now the Taurus is only available with a 1.5-liter TGDI petrol engine, 163 horsepower. Lower trims can be spec'd with a manual gearbox, while higher trims get 6-speed automatic. There's also an all-wheel drive version with the automatic transmission. The Torres can tow up to 1.5 tons, ground clearance is 19.5 centimeters, but this test car is front-wheel drive, so I won't be doing my diagonal approach test today. Ssangyong doesn't provide any acceleration figures. According to my measurements, 0 to 100 km per hour takes 9.5 seconds, regardless of whether it's in normal or sport mode. When launching on a dry, grippy surface, there's half a second or so rollout before you get full power. I suspect it's either to keep the emissions in check or to protect the gearbox, or both. Speaking of the gearbox, when I launched with one wheel on less grippy surface, the car had full power, but it got stuck in first gear. It shifted only once I released the accelerator for a moment. Now, I won't try to replicate this on camera because I don't want to break the car, but this happened twice during filming. Granted, when we're filming, we sometimes do things a bit more aggressively than normally. Perhaps it's a problem with this particular example, which already participated in media and dealer launch events. Claimed fuel economy is 8.6 liters per 100 kilometers combined. It's achievable, but don't be surprised to see more than 10 liters per 100 kilometers in the city or on the motorway when you push it. The suspension copes well with potholes, and that's even on 20-inch rims, which are standard on the top trim. Front suspension is McPherson struts, and in the back there is multi-link suspension. Soundproofing is average. I'm talking about wind noise and road noise, but the suspension really softens out those bumps and you can't hear them. The visibility is average as well. The Torres gets many safety features and driver aids, including reverse cross traffic alert with emergency braking. Other driver aids, such as lane keeping assist, may prove to be problematic. I can't tell exactly which one of the systems pulls the steering wheel from my hands, especially on winding roads, because clicking through the multi-level menus while driving is quite dangerous, I think. Whatever I manage to turn off is most likely turned back on when I start the vehicle again. Unfortunately, there is no physical button for this. Perhaps if I could let the Torres drive according to what the system considers to be center of the lane, it would work, but there are times when the lane departure system warns me anyway. So either I'm in control and the system wants to pull the steering wheel out of my hands, or the other system disapproves. Again, this is something This is something I remember from Kias and Hyundais a few years ago. This may occur mainly on winding roads, but there are times when the system also acts up in the city when somebody parks like an asshole and you have to avoid their car. So, shut up! It's a shame Ssangyong just doesn't have a physical button with which I could just turn the thing off. At least the adaptive cruise control with semi-autonomous driving works well enough. Without the navigation card, the traffic sign recognition system doesn't work, so I don't know if the Torres already has intelligent speed assist. I mentioned this in my review of the Lexus RX. Ssangyong didn't give me a clear answer because apparently the car uses the Corando's homologation, which was issued before the ISA regulations came into effect. By the way, have you noticed the lack of Ssangyong badging? There's only a logo with the dragon wings, and otherwise there is only the Torres model name. It is rumored that also in Europe the Ssangyong brand is to be phased out and renamed KG Mobility, as it is the case in Far Eastern markets, but the details are scarce. Ssangyong Torres prices start at €39,490 for the base trim manual. This top trim model, without all-wheel drive, costs €48,490. I like the Torres's design, I like how spacious inside it is, however I don't like the electronics. Not because they are overwhelming, but because they are half-baked. I don't know how much can be improved with software updates before a full-on facelift. And how do you like the Ssangyong Torres? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.